to the Soul Search live stream show. I'm your live stream host, Kat Connect, and I'm also a spiritual business coach. And I'm so glad that you've joined me for today's show. So I'm here every other Monday, 12 noon Pacific time and 3 o'clock Eastern time. And my goal on this show is to offer you insight and to give you some inspiration as you begin your work week. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about vision. I know in my work and my coaching work, it's what everybody's talking about. The year is coming to an end and people are beginning to look forward. What do they want to happen? We're looking at 2020 vision. Here's just a little bit of kind of my thoughts as I prepared for this show on how visioning works. I remember one of my first visions. It happened when I was a little girl, maybe 6, let's say, maybe even a little younger. I remember looking out of my window. I lived in Ohio. It was flat. It was nothing but farmland and fields and trees all around me. And yet I looked out my window and I saw water. And I saw this vision of having a house and living by water. That was my first experience. And it was really, really amazing. And I held on to that vision. Then when I became a coach in my training, there were all these new tools and techniques and concepts. And I got how I could intentionally vision, not just, have the visions come to me, but I could bring them to me. Really exciting. So on today's show, I'm going to be bringing on a visionary guest who's going to help us have a conversation about that. And you are going to leave today's show. Here's my promise that you're going to leave today's show with some more information about your vision and how to make your vision a reality. Now, if you have a vision of winning something, then we have a raffle on this show. And all you have to do is put a comment into the comments, right? As we talk, as I ask questions, I'm going to ask you questions. I want to know what you're thinking, what it is you would like to know about visioning. So all you have to do is put in a comment, and we're going to give away one Amazon gift card to kind of finish up your holiday shopping, perhaps. Okay, I'm going to bring my guest on here in a moment. My guest, Abigail Morgan Prout. She is a friend, a colleague. She is a visionary leader. Here's a little bit about her. She is a professional leadership coach. She spent 20 years coaching, studying, and learning from thousands of powerful women with all walks of life. And she's gathered information. I know this is true about her. She's witnessed, she's seen emerging patterns and trends towards more feminine forward leadership. I love that. Feminine forward leadership. And she is a poetess, I think, an artist, a painter. She is deeply committed to creating beauty. And she is a beauty. So welcome to the show, Abigail. So happy to have you on my show. And we're going to start, as soon as Abigail gets here, we're going to start with a question for Abigail and for everyone out there.
Thanks,
and the question is this. What is your belief? What is your belief? So I'm going to ask this to you, Abigail, and the audience as well. What do you believe about visioning? Yeah, that's just a basic question. So everybody watching, put your beliefs in, and I would love to hear from you what you believe, Abigail.
So, Kat, thank you so much for having me on your show. What I believe about visioning, I actually believe that visioning it's the foundation of all creation. And if we can't see it, we can't be it. And so every time we are creating something, we have to go through a process of visioning. And so it's way more commonplace than we give it credit for. It's not some woo-woo thing. It's actually a daily activity. You're thinking you're thirsty and you're like, oh, I should get a glass of water. That's visioning. You get a vision of it first before you do it. So I believe that it really is the basic foundation of all creation.
That's a pretty profound belief, like the basic foundation. And yet I'm curious. So I love that, thinking about getting a glass of water. So we have to imagine, we bring into, our mind, it's kind of instructing us or giving us cues.
Yes.
And what about the bigger visioning? So there's the little everyday. What's your belief in that? Like, intentionally, you just use some words about that's how we create our life.
Yeah. Well, I believe that we are connected to everything. We are not separate. And even though we have an individual expression, we are part of a bigger whole. And when we are in a state where we can receive vision, we are connected to that bigger whole, and we're being given a gift and kind of an opportunity to use ourselves in service of something bigger.
You said something. I want to go back a couple of words or concepts. Like when we open ourselves to it, when we allow ourselves to receive. I love that, because it can seem like it's something we have to do. Oh my gosh, I've got to think this up. Right. And that's when we're going to go a little later in the program and look at that more clearly. But I think I have a memory. So one of my most favorite, I'll just say my most favorite, like, vision that I brought to life and actually created in reality happened when I did that. I never really thought about it like that. When I totally opened to what's the vision that's wanting to happen through me. And the vision that came was wild. I mean, it had things like, it was, again, the water, and it had this Ferris wheel, and I had all these images. And the message I kept getting was, this is going to be really important to your work. And those things didn't go together to me. I'm like, what does water and a Ferris wheel? Except when the day I looked out my living room window and my work was exactly what I wanted it to be, and there was the ocean and there was a Ferris wheel. And yet it took about 5 or 6 years for that to happen.
Right.
Like, for all of that to come together, it took a lot of trust on my part to keep going. Okay, I'm guessing that's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious what your experience is with that, either personally or in the work you do with allowing that to come through. And then,
yeah, I mean, you bring up a couple really good points. So one is, what are the conditions that allow us to receive a vision? And a lot of my work with my clients and the women that I work with is really about kind of clearing away the distractions that can block, or obstacles that get in the way of receiving a vision. And because we have so many things that we hold, we often don't realize that those things that's static. It's not, you're not allowing a clear channel. So part of it is creating the conditions, and those conditions are very personal. No one can tell you what those conditions are, but you know it because you feel open and softened and grateful and curious. Awe and curiosity, like those are the two emotions that you're in the receptive zone of visioning.
I love that. And I want to connect the dots of all that you just said. So there's static, right? And I think at times we are not conscious of the static that's happening in our world. I don't know about you, but for me, instead of softening, sometimes I push. When I feel I'm unconscious about the static. I love that word, or kind of whatever's blocking my vision. And so I push.
Yeah.
And instead of getting clearer, it gets foggier. It gets fuzzier.
Yeah.
And right. And it's no fun at all. So I want to put this out to our audience. And I want to say this about the audience, because there are people who watch this show for weeks, maybe years to come. I don't know. So wherever you are in time and you're watching the show, put in a comment. I mean, really take a look. I'd be curious what works for other people when it comes to opening to a vision. And maybe, you said another thing you said that resonated with me is we can't really tell people what that is. Like only we can know. I think that's part of visioning, is that we have to do it in our own individual way. Sometimes my visioning is I'm all by myself, and it's quiet. And sometimes I'm in a city and there's noise, because that's what's sparking me in that moment.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I want to go back to that you spoke of was this timeline. It's like,
oh yeah,
visions are out of time. And so to try and put them on a timeline is, it's definitely a pothole I see a lot of people falling into. And I certainly have fallen into that many times. And just really holding that, visions have their own timeline, and being committed to honoring visions and moving them forward, but not being attached to the specifics of how it comes to pass, nor of the time that it takes to do so,
we just had a comment there from Suzanne. We're going to talk in a couple of minutes about different ways of visioning. Collaging is one of my favorites, but it's just like what you're saying. I can put something on a collage, on a vision board, and it will take 5, maybe 10 years for it to happen, or like 5 minutes. Like I put it on the vision board and I walk outside and I'm like, there it is. It's right in front of me.
Yeah.
And one of go ahead.
One of the things that's really amazing about that is when you are, or when one is connected and aware of the vision that they're in relationship with, then you can recognize it when it occurs. Whenever it occurs, and it can be really surprising circumstances. And you're like, oh wow, this is what I was getting, but I didn't have it in this context at all. One example that I have is I had a really amazing experience at, I visited the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in 2017. And I was really struck by his power of visioning. And I got this sense that I was being called to be a spirit-led leader in my own right. And I remember thinking, well, how is this going to happen? Like, I don't really know how this is going to go down. And it took about 1.5 years for me to see the how, to actually see how it was working. And so a lot of it is about faith and about commitment, but it's also about learning to recognize your vision when it does show up.
Yeah. And so faith and trust, I want to be layering these in for people, and recognizing it. Because I think there's a real clear signal that we get. Oh, this. And, I was talking at the beginning of the show about this vision I had when I was like 6, where I saw this body of water outside my window. And then it wasn't until I was like 45 that vision actually totally came true. I'm curious about this part, but it inspired me. I kept inspired. It inspired me as I grew up, and as I had kids and got married, and still the water wasn't outside my window.
Where's the water?
I kept feeling like, that's coming. That's coming, right? And I don't even know if I have the words for this, but that was one of those visions that you use this term, like visions happen out of time. No, I had a knowing it was going to happen, and that's all I needed.
Yeah.
Like that vision, just like, okay, someday that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's going to be great. And that's going to be cool. And when it did happen, it was perfect. Right. Because I had my kids where I was meant to have my kids, and I had my jobs, and it was like, oh, this is like perfect timing for me
Yeah.
to be living in this house, in this place, and in
Yeah.
this time. So there's a bit of a paradox, right?
Well,
It's
there
out of
is.
time. Yeah.
Because how much, I mean, and this is kind of to the core of being a visionary, is like, how much are we taking responsibility for our visions, and how are we taking responsibility for them? How much are we moving them forward, or how much are we allowing them to move themselves forward through us? And it's like this question of drive versus kind of, kind of a flower unfolding. And there is no right answer. And that's where the play between, what I call the masculine and feminine work starts to really kick in, because you are listening. If you're in a dialogue with vision, and if you're in relationship with your vision, then you can hear when it's time to act and take a right action versus pushing, like, oh, I've got to do this,
Yeah, that's one. I'm just trying to capture something you just said, the relationship piece. Right? Because I think that's the key. So a little, you said there's no answer, but there are keys. I mean, there are like, oh, this actually works. Both of you can, and I can say, absolutely, if you stay in relationship with your vision, that's a good thing. Like, that's going to be a good thing. Not perfect. I'm not perfect. I stay in relationship and then I get out of relationship. What are some of the ways you use in your coaching, or that you have had yourself? Caitlin, there's commenting on this flower unfolding. I love that as well. It's like it gets us into nature and away from our, kind of industrial mind. But I personally need structures. Because I will go unconscious. As much as I do consider myself a visionary, I will forget, I'll lose track of, oh, that's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So what are structures you like personally to keep you connected?
I think about it, just to kind of build on that context. I think about my relationship with vision as a relationship. It's like, a friend. And, how do you call your friend? Do you text them? Do you make a date to hang out with them? Do you write a letter to them? Or do you just close your eyes and send them love from inside? It's the same with visioning. You can contact and have a relationship with your vision in so many. I mean, the possibilities of creative relationship expression are so many. But what's important is that you find the ways that really connect you to your vision. And some, for me, personally, are I have a church that I walk to from my house, and I go into the empty church and I just have a conversation and just ask what's next. Or I take a walk in the woods, and I love to sing. And so singing for me puts me in touch with a different type of call and response. But, you can also, there's collaging and journaling. And I also think dancing, like moving the body and being in physical expression and listening to what wants to come through us, can be really powerful. There's so many ways.
Oh my gosh, you're reminding me. I did a workshop once, a NIA workshop, where we danced. Like, I did a guided journey, because I love guided journeys. That's one of the ways I love to help people, like I have that relationship with their vision, and I love it for myself. But then we danced it. We danced it into reality, and it was super cool. I love this thinking about relationship, because I think, well, I like collaging because it's like looking at pictures of my, right? That's how I stay in relationship with people.
Yeah,
I kind of twirl through my pictures on my phone or on
totally.
Facebook, or I'm like, oh, hi, there you are. I love you,
Yeah.
and get a really yummy feeling. But also really super important. And probably I'll say this 6 times more on the show. It's up to you, right?
Mhm.
This is don't nobody can tell you. I think there's a lot of shoulding around visioning. You're supposed to have if you don't have this, then you're really not visioning properly.
Mhm.
Um, I like to, Curtis is saying, here, yeah, you can draw it, you can paint it, it can be a plant, right?
Yeah.
Visions, it's like the multitude of ways, but finding the way that really resonates. It's
Yes,
cool.
and then there are also more linear ways to communicate with your vision, such as bullet
Huh?
pointing and vision boarding specifically on a certain topic, and just the simple process. Sometimes the way that I get in touch with relationship is talking to somebody else about my gratitude about that
Oh.
person. So if I'm missing my
Oh.
aunt, for example, I'll turn to my daughter and say, "Oh, Aunt Molly's so cool, blah 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 blah."
Mhm.
And suddenly she'll be present. And so when we
Ah.
turn and share what I like to call daring to share our vision with another person, it lights it up. It
Ah.
brings it present and it gives us access to it in a different way through conversation and engagement.
And here's the key to me in what you've just said. It's gratitude. Because so often, people that I work with, clients that I work with, they create a vision and then they start looking for it to happen. And when it doesn't happen, they get frustrated. And
Mm-hmm.
so they actually talk about their vision negatively, right? Right? They start complaining about their vision. It's like complaining about a spouse, right? It's
Right.
like, it's really, really common. But how much better to go, oh, what am I grateful for about my vision, even if it's not in what we consider reality yet,
Mm-hmm.
but grateful that it's part of our vision and what we're seeing and what we're sensing.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, right. That's a
I
part of the
love that.
making. Yeah,
I love
like,
what
oh,
I
I
love
love.
what I love about that is like it actually calls us into shifting our relationship with our longing or our wanter.
Uh-huh.
It's like
Yes.
actually um, feeling desire as something that is yummy and like sensual and exciting instead of something that's like, well, it's not there yet, you know?
Right. And
Like, well,
lots of
that's
people will
no
say,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, because we have this idea about consensus reality, like that's the end goal. And
Mm,
actually, every part of a vision becoming real is part of it's part of the vision. It's actually part of the vision.
mhm.
Is as it's like that flower unfolding. It's when the seed is planted and when we're just noticing how beautiful the little green leaves are, or we don't even know it's coming up. Um, and there's something I want to make sure we get to, because so with all that yumminess, there's a dark side, and we're kind of looking at it now, right? There's a dark side, and
Mm.
I think, oh, and Suzanne said speaking it out loud. That's what you spoke to. When we speak the positive things about our vision out loud to another person,
Mhm.
I think for me the dark side is attachment to, like, there's something I think, like, right. I mean,
Thing.
duh.
That
Here's the
sums up
thing.
the whole issue of humanity right there.
Attached to when it's going to happen, what it's going to look like, how it's going to look to other people.
Yeah.
And for me, the sweet spot is around being really committed to the vision
Mm.
without being attached, without an attachment. That's where the sweet spot and the real big challenge. So for our audience, I'd be curious to hear, and also to have you just know for yourself,
Mm.
what's your challenge? So anything do you have on that, Abigail, besides the basic,
Well,
dark side of attachment?
I do think that the dark side of attachment can come in so many forms. And I think that that's like the through line of the dark side is that we get
Mm.
attached to it happening a certain way, with a certain outcome, with on a certain timeline, and it will change us in a certain direction. And I think that we're putting our emphasis on the wrong. It's almost like we're putting our emphasis on that industrial mind of like, what's the product that you've created versus,
Right.
versus how is the experience of having a vision, of being a channel of pure, inspired spirit coming through you as your unique self. How is that informing and what's the word I'm looking for? Like enriching your life, enhancing your life, because that's the juice. It's you know how they say it's all about the journey. Well, with visioning, it's all about the journey. Because I'm sitting here in a house, in a gorgeous house that was totally on a vision board 3 years ago. And I'm telling you that my experience of becoming the visionary that helped create this physical experience of living here that's the gold. It's not the fact that I'm like, oh, I love my house. Yay, check that box. It's like who I have become in holding it lightly, like a bird in my hand, and connecting with it from my heart and being open to following all the cues to get me here is like, wow, that was pretty friggin' awesome. Let's try it with something else,
And knowing your journey towards your house, I want for the people watching, the journey, right. So part of it is the growing of self. That it feels like a challenge, it feels like a block, or it feels like, why do I have to go through this? It's the growing, of Abigail. It's the growing of the person as they're moving towards their vision. It wouldn't be happening otherwise. We won't grow unless we have something that's, I think of it as a spiritual nudge, like this. This is what's wanting to happen.
And if you're not willing to risk for your vision, what else is there? What's the point?
Okay, I'm so with you on that. And I'm looking at our time. I mean, I could talk about this all day, but we actually have 3 minutes. So I want to, and I have some tips I want to give to folks and announce our raffle winner. So where can people find out more about what you do and anything you want to say about that, what you offer in your work?
Yeah. So my work is, I think of myself as a leadership coach, but I'm also pioneering into a new language of feminine leadership. And so my work is developing a model based on nature's spiral. So using the spiral as a model that helps us activate the how.
I love that. And where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, people can find our work at spiral-leadership.com. And right now we've done 8 of these online programs, but we're launching our January program in the middle of January. So if you want to find out more, come on down.
Go on down. Highly recommended.
Yes.
Great big thumbs up. Yeah.
Thank you, Kat.
And as 2 visionaries, so in my business, it's Soul Driven Success, every year I launch it's the same vision program. I use the same process, but like a different focus. And this year, the focus is on work, on meaningful work. Like if there's something you want in your work, like to make it real, like no kidding, I'm going to be launching my vision program the middle of January. So there's some options, and whatever you do out there, this is actually one of my tips, is that we need help. So all those wonderful things that we said, I love all kinds of going into nature, making a collage, but there's some point to make my vision real, I need to get help. I need somebody else to be talking about it or holding it with me. That's one of my tips. One of the things you said, and we talked about a little bit, that I want to just layer in here is that to create a vision, we have to be focused on positive, like the positive of what we already have. Like that to me is like you have to do that. Okay. Oh my gosh. So raffle, we have a raffle winner. Before I say goodbye to you, we're going to announce our raffle winner. And because that's part of my vision is that everybody wins. There's always a winner on my show. I feel like a winner. I'm going to say, Abigail, for having spent this time with you. It's just been fabulous. Thank you for being here. Thank you for kind of showing up with your wisdom for everybody watching. I'm just thrilled with kind of what got unfolded here, talking about a flower, what got unfolded. And I'm waiting for Joey to show me who is the raffle winner of today is Suzanne Lamott. Congratulations, Suzanne. Yay. All right. Thank you so much, Abigail, and everybody who's watching. All right. Great visioning. So this is the show for today. I'm Kat Connect, your live stream host. You can find me here every other Monday. This is the last show, though, of the year. So happy holidays and happy new year. And remember to be the joy. Bye.